On the evening of Friday, August 21st, 2026, a 134-page contract landed on the City of Tampa's document platform, minutes before a 5 p.m. deadline. It is called the Stadium Development and Funding Agreement, and it commits three parties: the Tampa Bay Rays, the City of Tampa, and Hillsborough County, to a ballpark budgeted at $2,360,930,000. The renderings show a translucent dome over a new neighborhood in Drew Park, on land that is currently a community college campus. The Rays call it their forever home. The team pays $1.37 billion and covers every cost overrun. The public pays $876 million. 2 votes this week decide whether any of it happens. This is a story about a machine. Florida built it 4 decades ago, a system for turning public money into private stadiums. And it has run 3 times before. The machine is not hidden. It is written into tax codes and interlocal agreements and bond documents, and every part of it has a paper trail. To understand what Tampa is about to vote on, you have to understand the 3 receipts that came first. The first receipt is buried under a parking lot in St. Petersburg. In the heart of downtown St. Pete, 2 enormous gas cylinders once towered over a neighborhood called the Gas Plant District, one of the city's oldest black communities, established in the 1890s. 85 acres of homes, churches, schools, groceries, jazz clubs, and a library. In 1978, the City Council declared it a redevelopment area and promised residents affordable housing and an industrial park with good jobs. Federal community redevelopment grants, $11.3 million, helped fund the relocation. Then, in the 1980s, the city's attention shifted. St. Petersburg wanted a Major League Baseball team, and the cleared land downtown was the place to put a stadium. By 1986, more than 280 buildings in the gas plant neighborhood had been demolished. More than 500 families had been relocated. The industrial park was never built. The affordable housing never came. What came instead was the Florida Suncoast Dome. It opened in March 1990 at a cost of $138 million. And it had one remarkable feature: there was no team to play in it. St. Petersburg had built a major league stadium on spec. The city courted the Chicago White Sox in 1988 and lost. It bid for the 1993 expansion and was passed over. For 8 years, the Dome hosted ice shows, folk fairs, and home and garden expos while it waited. The team finally arrived in 1998, and the Devil Rays threw their first pitch at what was by then called Tropicana Field, 20 years after the City Council resolution that promised the gas plant's residents a future. That is the founding transaction, a public bet, paid in full before the payoff existed, on land cleared with promises that were never kept. The second receipt sits directly across the street from the new ballpark site. In 1995, Malcolm Glazer bought the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and immediately declared Tampa Stadium inadequate. When local government moved too slowly, the Glazers began openly meeting with other cities about relocation. In 1995, Hillsborough voters had rejected 2 tax measures for public works. In 1996, the county tried again with a new package: a 30-year, half-cent sales tax that would fund schools, public safety, roads, and a new Buccaneers stadium. It was called the Community Investment Tax. During the campaign, Glazer promised to pay half the stadium's cost if fans put down 50,000 season ticket deposits. The drive fell 17,000 deposits short. The offer was withdrawn. On September 3, 1996, the referendum passed, 53% to 47%. The Buccaneers contributed nothing to construction. Raymond James Stadium opened in 1998, built entirely with public money, roughly $168 million, and a local sportscaster gave it the nickname that stuck. The CITS, the Community Investment Tax Stadium. Here is the detail that matters most for this story. The tax outlived the argument. The Community Investment Tax has been collecting half a cent on every taxable dollar spent in Hillsborough County for 30 years. It is still collecting today. The third receipt belongs to Miami, and it is the most expensive of the three. In 2009, Miami-Dade County agreed to help build a new ballpark for the Florida Marlins. The final cost of Marlins Park was $634 million, and public money covered more than 3/4 of it. To raise its share, the county sold roughly $500 million in bonds, approved at a hastily called commission meeting that began shortly after midnight on July 1, 2009, in the depths of the credit crisis, at interest rates to match. The Miami Herald traced one $91 million tranche of those bonds and found it would eventually cost more than $1.2 billion to repay. Total repayment on the full borrowing, roughly $2.4 billion. And the schedule was backloaded. The first payments on that $91 million loan did not begin until 2026. They are coming due now this year for a stadium deal signed 17 years ago. Jeffrey Loria bought the Marlins in 2002 for $158.5 million. In 2017, 5 years after taxpayers built his ballpark, he sold the team for $1.2 billion. The county's profit-sharing clause, its protection against exactly this outcome, recovered $5.5 million. The public paid 9 figures. The clawback returned less than 1% of the sale price. The easy explanation for all of this is a story about villains, greedy owners, and starstruck politicians. The owners were often greedy, and the politicians did love a ribbon cutting, but that explanation is incomplete because it treats each stadium as a separate scandal. They are not separate. St. Petersburg had no Glazer. Tampa had no Loria. The cities changed, the owners changed, the decades changed, and the outcome repeated anyway, because the structure underneath never changed. They are the same machine running on the same fuel, and the fuel is this. Stadiums in Florida are almost never paid for with present-day money. They are paid for with the past and the future, taxes already approved for something else, and taxes that have not been collected yet. The machine survives its operators, and in 2026 it is running again. Which brings the story back to Tampa and to the two mechanisms at the center of the 2026 agreement. The first mechanism is the past. Of Hillsborough County's contribution of $796 million, $360 million comes from the Community Investment Tax, the same half-cent sales tax voters approved in 1996 to build Raymond James Stadium. The tax that built the football stadium is now building the baseball stadium across the street. The deal's backers say, accurately, that it contains no new taxes. It does not need new taxes. The old one never stopped. The second mechanism is the future. Tampa's share of $80 million is structured as an advance, to be repaid from property taxes generated by a new community development district drawn over the college campus, a taxing district that does not exist yet, collecting revenue from buildings that have not been built. To make the numbers work, the stadium land is being carved out of the Drew Park Community Redevelopment Area so that future tax growth flows to the stadium district. Instead of the blighted neighborhood, the redevelopment area was created to fix. The Rays will separately place $100 million in private bonds, repaid from that same future tax stream. Add the rest, including $303 million in tourist taxes, $103 million in other county funds, and $30 million from a federal disaster recovery fund, and the pattern is complete. The public share of the Forever Home is assembled almost entirely from money approved decades ago and money that will not exist for years. To be precise about what is different this time, the Rays are paying roughly 60% of the stadium and absorbing every overrun, which is a larger private share than the Suncoast Dome, Raymond James, or Marlins Park ever saw. The team signed a 35-year non-relocation agreement and a separate guarantee backing its obligations. The people who negotiated this deal read the Miami receipt too. That is the machine on the ballot. On Thursday morning, August 27th, the Tampa City Council votes on the agreement. On Friday, the Hillsborough County Commission holds a special meeting to do the same. If both say yes, demolition at the Dale Mabry campus begins in December. The foundation and bowl start in March, and the Forever Home opens in 2029, 39 years after St. Petersburg opened a dome with no team in it. If either says no, the record above says what happens next. In Florida, stadium deals do not die at the podium. They wait. St. Petersburg waited 8 years for a team. The Glazers lost 2 referendums before winning the third. Miami's deal was pronounced dead more than once before a midnight meeting revived it. Either way, this week's vote settles less than it appears to, because the real terms are never on the ballot. The ballot asks whether to build. The receipts ask who pays, and when, and for how long. And Florida has already answered that 3 times. If Tampa says yes this week, its answer runs to 2064.